Hello viewers, let me take you through one of the four-wheel drive trips we did with our club from Pickerings Flat in the Hawkwa Hills where we were camped by the side of this beautiful Hawkwa River. Laurie, our trip leader, had a plan for us to visit 3 huts: the beautiful Bluff Hut, Lovicks Hut and Upper Jameison Hut. He had the itinerary all mapped out and off we went at 8 a.m. Fallen logs, luckily we didn't have to clear any ourselves. Also sharp rocks, our tire pressures were down and we had to pick a line and drive carefully. So our first stop was Bluff Hut at 1500 meters. It is the 3rd highest hut in Australia. Alpine grazing, where the cattlemen from the lowlands used to take their cattle to the high country where there was greener pastures for their cattle to feed on in the summer season, had been going on for perhaps 150 years, started in the 1800s. They built these huts along the way to provide the shelter they needed during rain or bad weather. Now this was public land and there was a lot of discussion on whether cattle should be allowed to graze on the vegetation is very unique to that highland. And over a lot of controversies, the grazing of cattle in Alpine National Park came to an end in 2015. We don't see cattle grazing and we don't see the stockmen in Alpine National Park anymore or in Victorian High Country. Once cattle grazing was banned in 2005, all the cattle were removed by 2006. It was in 2007 that a raging fire went through the High Country and destroyed the Bluff Hut completely. These 2 sheets of iron was all that was left after the fire. The rebuilding of many of these Victorian High Country stockmen's huts has meant that many generations of Australians can still remember the history and the traditions associated with the mountain cattlemen as part of the heritage. So from Bluff Hut we went on to Lovicks Hut. Had good views because we had climbed so high. We were now driving along the ridge line. We still had to climb up to Mount Lovick. In this controversial debate over how land should be best managed, there's one school of thought that allowing the cattle to graze on the grass keeps the grass low, which reduces the fuel load and stops raging fires. Another school of thought is that the cattle destroy the vegetation, especially in the boggy marshes, flowers and the unique vegetation of the Alpine High Country. I was trying to imagine what this place would look like in winter. Have seen some photos online and it's a different kind of magic. Just as we were hoping that we wouldn't get a flat tire, one of the members called in on the radio to say that they had a flat tire and they changed it with no fuss, but we caught up with them at the picnic viewpoint. Picnic View Lookout was a great spot, wonderful views, and the view was towards Mount Buller on this side, and you could see it very clearly from this place that we were parked at. The dead gnarled gum trees and the beautiful little alpine flowers made for good photography. So we set off on the bluff track again, making our way towards Lovicks Hut. The scenery was stunning, and Lovicks Hut is located between Mount Lovick and King Billy No. 1 mountain. I really enjoyed this stretch of the track as we saw so many different types of gum trees, different shapes, almost ghostly with their branches twisted and turned. That's where they get their name from, the gnarled gum trees. The Lovick family have lived in the Victorian High Country near Mansfield in Merrijig for almost 150 years. Their name is intertwined with the Victorian High Country, often called Lovick Country. They have been cattlemen and are renowned horsemen. Wonderful story about Jack Lovick. He was instrumental in starting up the Mount Buller ski resort. He used to own the lease to Mount Buller, and then when they bought that of him, they compensated him with this lease, Billy Run lease. Really helped the ski industry grow. This hut is in his family still. The hut was used by Jack Lovick as a base for trail rides, and it still continues that tradition with Charlie Lovick. The Lovicks and the Stoney family have been involved in a number of rescue missions, and if it wasn't for these huts and the many others scattered all along the Victorian High Country, many lives would have been lost. Started seeing a lot more of the alpine gums and black ash tree, the same wood that the cattlemen, stockmen would have used to build their huts. upper Jameson hut is situated by the side of the Jameson River. It was actually built by Fred Fry in 1930. An excellent bushman and craftsman. He is also famous for the Fry's hut built near Pickerings Flat. He used hand-split timber, drop slab construction, and his method of rolling heavy roof poles into place using a horse and long chain is quite famous. So this was one of the first huts that Fred built. He is known to have built many huts in the Victorian High Country. He's quite a character, Fred Fry. So we spent some time here. This hut does have a mezzanine floor, and we took a break here and then headed back up the hill again. At this point, I looked at my map and we were sort of opposite the refrigerator gap, and I happened to get this great shot of the bluff. Really enjoyed this trip, driving back home, trying to understand the history and heritage of Victorian High Country cattlemen, their huts, their stockyards, and learned a lot on this trip about that history.
From our campsite at Pickerings Hut, we took Brox Road down this way, and then we went left into Bluff Link Road, past Refrigerator Gap, and then we took a right turn into Bluff Track and saw Bluff Hut there. And then we carried on from Bluff Hut to Lovicks Hut, which was only about 6 kilometers. We had a stop at Picture Point. Great views across to Mount Bulla from here. Then we turned around here at the three-way crossing back into Brox Road, very windy, steep road. And then the last hut we visited was the upper Jameson hut, which was just a little detour there and back. Then back onto the Brox Road, up this way again, and home to Pickerings Hut.